Hello and welcome to In Sequence, a comics podcast for everyone. I'm your host again for this week, Robin B., and with me are not only our wonderful regular panelists, but an extra special bonus panelist. Please say hello, panelists.
I am Matt.
I am Jillian.
And I am Scout.
Hi, I'm Stephen Hilger. I'm new here. I'm very excited to be here, though. I hope you trust me, and I read the same book as you all, so hopefully I'll prove my worth.
Great. You did your homework. That's a good start.
That is what we do here.
Yes. Y'all talking about video games?
We do all read the same book.
I actually only read the wrong book.
Yeah, we actually gave you a completely different one, Stephen, so...
Yeah, keep them guessing. For real, though, I am so excited to be here. I'm very flattered to be brought on the show in general, and especially for this book. This is one of my favorite comics, so thank you all for having me.
We're very happy to have you here too, Stephen. Very excited that you also love this book as much as I do. So the book that we're reading, I'm the host today, so you can probably guess that it's about girls kissing. It's a book called On a Sunbeam by Tillie Walden in space. It came out in the year 2018 when Tillie Walden was like 22 or some ridiculous age. A fact that makes me furious every time I remember it. So On a Sunbeam began as a webcomic. It's still mostly readable as a webcomic. I think, Scout, you said some of the chapters are broken, but you can still read it there mostly.
Yeah, I was having trouble yesterday, but then it seemed like it was working today, so it could have been a brief problem.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was going to say I didn't have any issues today.
Well, it's also available if you do have issues as a very large tome by First Second Press, which is where I read it. I believe most of us read the print version.
Yeah, the first time I read it on onasunbeam.com, but I bought this because I like flipping through the book when we're on the show.
Yeah. It's a very beautiful book. So to give a quick summary, this is the longest thing we've read by like a wide margin. So, and it's also very sort of dreamy and ethereal. So a straightforward plot summary doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But the things you need to know are it is a story predominantly following a woman named Mia. It opens with her arriving on a crew of people who fly through space and fix up old buildings that are also flying through space. That is interwoven with a story 5 years earlier when she was at Space High School, where she fell in love with another young woman named Grace. They eventually parted, and it kind of continues those two stories in tandem before going on to sort of a thing where those timelines sort of converge upon each other. The things you really need to know are it's a sort of romance in a sci-fi setting that has some very interesting ideas, I think, about world building, which is kind of just showing you what's up and trusting you to either figure it out or not care very much. I would say one of the big appeal of this book, I think, is the glorious art, the way everything is rendered here. It is very much about the experience and the atmosphere, I would say, more than any other elements. But there's lovely characters and things here to get into as well. I guess to start off, do we want to have general thoughts? How did everybody, if this was your first experience or not? If it wasn't, how did you first hear about this? And either way, how did everybody respond to the book?
Yeah, like I said, it was not my first time reading this. I actually bought a copy of this for AC for their birthday last year.
Lovely.
Because I think it's something that they would really like. They're going to have to tell me if they read it when they hear this. I don't know.
They will like it.
Yeah, I don't know. I went back and I was like, oh yeah, this fucking rules. I remember the day that I read it for the first time, somebody had just like recommended it to me in the TWG Discord and like sent me the link to the website. And I read like a chapter and I said, this is going to emotionally fuck me up, isn't it? And then like, if you look at the messages, it's like 2 hours later, it says, that was great and I hate you or something like that.
Yeah, I had never read anything by Tillie Walden. I was introduced to this by you guys saying, hey, let's read this. And I said, sure. And I quite enjoyed it.
Lovely. Yeah, I picked this up when it came out. Back in 20, like when it came out as the print edition. I'd previously read a couple of things by Tillie Walden, A City Inside and Spinning in particular. So when this came out, I was just like wandered into a comic book store and saw it, and I was like, I know her, she's good, and so I picked it up. And I had a similar emotionally devastating experience. I very distinctly remember remember reading this in an old apartment that I was living in and having to put it down because it was making me like angry because I liked it so much. Like it's just welling up so much emotion in me that I was like frustrated and was like, I need to stop. But yeah, rereading it hit me extremely hard once again. And yeah, so I'm glad we got a chance to go through it for this.
Yeah, this is also my first time with any Tillie Walden. First time hearing about this was through my lovely fellow panelists. I went into it knowing nothing, expecting nothing, and I'm really floored by it on a technical level, which I will talk about a lot, but also on a storytelling level. I really enjoyed it. I'm a huge fan of nonlinear storytelling, and I think that this does such a good job with it. And find myself feeling very affectionate towards all of the characters as well. Really had a wonderful time reading it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a fun story about discovering Tillie Walden. So for a long time, when I went to any comic book store, I would get three things. I would get something that was recommended to me. I would get something that was a continuation of a series that I was reading, and then I would get something that I just knew nothing about, like just purely like, this looks cool. I don't want to Google it. I just want to go in blind. And that was for A City Inside, which, as Robin, you said, it's one of her earlier works. And I still did that bizarre method of buying comics because of how good A City Inside was. I was like, for however many things I waste money on, it's still worth it if I find another A City Inside.
Yeah.
And so after reading that, I just became a huge fan of hers. And I remember the lead up to this book. Like I remember I seeing it on social media every day, and I got a copy like as soon as it came out. And I actually read it first. This is my second time reading it. I read it for the first time like over the course of a long period of time. It probably took me like a couple years to finish. And it was kind of surreal reading it that way because like it was not that long before lockdown began, and reading this book in sort of a quarantine mindset kind of adds a whole other layer to it. Reading it for this episode, I finished it in 2 days. And that was wild because I didn't fully clock how like the first half of this graphic novel is largely this kind of like, it's almost more magic realism than science fiction, you know, like it is kind of funny whenever they're like, no hoverboards in class, you like forget it's sci-fi. Yeah. But the first half is this kind of like coming of age romance, and then the second half is like Tillie Walden does Star Wars, and I love that. Like I love that like the second half is suddenly you're getting lore about this planet and like alliances. They're training with sticks and like getting in fights, and like I love that she can do both, and I love that it doesn't feel like at odds with each other. It feels like, oh, like we spent the first half really getting like emotionally immersed, and then we realized like all these pretty images had weight and meaning to them. It wasn't just splashes of color. These are real places. I also like the fact that like, you know, it's not subtle, but I think it works that like their job is restoring old places, and then the second half is just restoring old relationships and kind of forging new ones as well. It kind of reminds me of the movie oh my god, what's the Takahata film Only Yesterday? It reminds me a lot of Only Yesterday, where like half of that movie is like a childhood memory, and then the other half is like that character as an adult. And I think both pieces, both like fictional works, are about like kind of restoring the past so you can move forward, like not hanging on to a memory of a place or of a person, but like figuring out what they mean to you now. I really like the line, well, I don't want to talk too far ahead, but like I love the line Mia has where she's like, this isn't what it was, but it can be something new.
Yeah.
That feels like the theme of the whole book to me.
Yeah.
I love the Only Yesterday comparison too, because also in both cases, when those two things are shown in the same frame, both of those timelines, it makes you cry harder than you ever have in your whole life.
The reflection. Brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Good parallel. But maybe let's start with the first half of the book, we can call it, the sort of the jumping between restoring old buildings and Mia and Grace at school. How did people, I guess, this open? It's like such a cold opening. It's just like, here is the world. Here is where we are. Here's what's happening. For me, I always like going into a movie, I think is where I have this experience the most, that I'm not, don't know what's going to be. When more of like, kind of an art house movie, and just letting it wash over you and going like, I don't necessarily understand what's happening, but I like watching it unfold. which is sort of the experience for a little bit of On a Sunbeam, where it was like, why are they in a fish? Why are these buildings flying? What do they mean when they say they're restoring them? Like, none of this makes a lot of sense, but I'm just enjoying the vibes. Yeah, I'm curious about like first impressions in that way. Like, how did people like feel coming into this strange universe and then getting into like a school drama at the same time?
I'm kind of like you. I like when, as long as you understand enough for the story to like stand, I don't need to know like how everything works. I don't need to know like why everything is the way it is. If it is simply the vibes, then it is simply the vibes. Especially with something shorter. I mean, I know you guys said it's a tome, but reading it on the website, it definitely felt like, you know, for something shorter, I don't need to know everything. I just need to know what's going to make the story impactful, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think also, reading it this time, I noticed that very early on, Jules kind of is introducing Mia to things that the other characters are not explaining. Mm-hmm. And reading it this time, I was like, oh, this is for me, actually. Right? Like, I just didn't put that together. Like, she says something like, I mean, they didn't do it on purpose. And it's right after she's basically saying they didn't tell her anything about the people on the ship, or the fact that like Elliot doesn't talk. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's giving you enough to at least move to the next page and figure out like, okay, well, Elliot doesn't talk, and I assume we'll find out why at some point.
Yeah. I think I have this tenet going into many things, but especially with science fiction. As a rule of thumb with science fiction, and this applies in like, I suppose, like a hard fantasy setting as well, the more things are explained, usually the worse they are, because then it becomes about the minutia instead of about like what the thing that you're over explaining is, the purpose of it in the narrative. Mm-hmm. Going into this and sort of getting thrown into it, the in media res kind of opening, I suppose you might say, felt totally natural to me. And I was really actually quite a fan of it. I was quite taken by it, because if you get a lot of stuff up front as far as explanation of worlds or explanation of like, we don't get very much into the politics of this world, but there definitely is a point later on where you get a little bit of that. If that had been front loaded, it wouldn't have had the impact of context, which it gets from being later in the piece after you have had time to acclimate to everything. So I felt really strongly positively about the opening.
Yeah, Brendan and I on our video game podcast Into the Aether, we talk about a lot of tactics games cold open with the map and the narrator, and it's like the Kingdom of Fargus, and it just means nothing. It's like basically getting you like cozy and ready to level up, you know, but it's not like telling
Thinking
you
about
anything.
Triangle strategy with their whole thing about salt.
The salt.
That made me not play that game.
So I think, but then there are other games where you get the map like after a mission. You're like, okay, this means something. It makes sense. I think the same here. I mean, I love this approach at fantasy or science fiction or whatever you want to call it. Like, it also reminds me kind of like the works of Mobius and also the series Saga, which I think takes a similar approach at like just sort of throwing really striking imagery at you. Like, oh, there's like a flying tree and like a planet is a baby. And, you know, it's just sort of like, it makes the world feel more alive and mysterious, and like we know exactly what the characters know. And I like how the more sort of the more directly explained elements are like opened as a mystery. Like we learn about the staircase in a classroom setting where like so we are exactly where Mia is at, where she's like, oh, that's a real place. I thought it was just like a fairy tale or something. And then we learn that like it's sort of this isolationist place, and you know, it's sort of like directly counter to this theme of like connection and restoring. There's this place in the galaxy that is like completely locked away. And that's another thing too with like, I think something that I struggled with early on and also rereading it, and I don't think this is really a fault of the book, it's just something that I experienced, but I felt less confused by the fish and the imagery, and it just took me a long time to remember like who was who. Because I think like Mia, we get a stronger sense of her personality in the flashbacks, because like at work in this, you know, crew, she's kind of shy and quiet. So like, and then the other the character, Elliot doesn't talk. And then the two older women in charge, like, they don't really trust anyone yet. So everyone is kind of closed off initially, which works in retrospect. But as like a newcomer to the world, you're like, okay, wait, who is everyone? And Jules is really doing the heavy lifting, like explaining shit to us and also being like the first really identifiable character. But that really works. I think like there's a scene where she eats lunch with Mia on one of the like places they're restoring. And the palette, which I know, Scout, you'll talk more about later, but the palette of the scene it's sort of this like campfire colors, like it's like reds and oranges, and like it is simultaneously a warm scene because Jules is a very warm character, but you can tell that like they're breaking the rules, they might get in trouble. There's like a warning element to it as well. See, I think it just took me a while to like learn who everyone was, but I think that's kind of by design. Especially like the payoff of like Elliot eventually speaking, and also like the payoff of really feeling like by the end it's like, oh, this is a crew, this is a team, and they all need each other. It's a really nice feeling.
That is so, like, the thing I took this time near the end when Grace joins them, right at the very end of the book, and they're back at Alma and Charlotte's house. I was like, it feels this shouldn't work, is the thing I was thinking. Like, it shouldn't make sense that Grace fits in with this group of people. We haven't seen her with these people before, but the thing that like Tillie has set you up all the way along for that to work for you. And also, the first thing you see, I think is it Grace and it's either Grace and Elle or Grace and Jules that are like on top of the ship hanging out in that scene. But yeah, anyway, absolutely. Tillie's using these either things that she set up really early on that are paying off, or using visual cues to get you to, in this case, like believe that something would make sense, right? Even though you've never seen these two characters together.
And there's no better way to form an ensemble than a heist mission, which is what they all go through at the end. So it's full Mass Effect 2 suicide mission. So
I love how those relationships develop too. I mean, like Stephen and Matt both mentioned how at the beginning they sort of are fighting with each other, or at least they seem really standoffish, right? Like Mia gets to the ship and it's like, Elle doesn't talk to me. Char doesn't really talk to me. Alma yells at me, and only Jules is like, cool. And eventually, I think there's a way you could see that and at first be like, oh, is this just like kind of a book about people being nasty to each other? Because then there's also in the school where like Mia has a bully and the teachers are like on her case and like nobody really gets along. And I think it is like such a magic trick to take this comic where you have the main character Mia and like no one around her she can trust. Like everyone is either cold and standoffish or actively hostile, and eventually bring it around to being like they are family on this ship. And I think it does it really gracefully as well by like sort of teaching you why everyone is that way, and it's all ways that make sense, not in a here's my tragic backstory so it forgives all of my flaws kind of way, but like, oh, Elle wasn't talking to me because Elle doesn't talk. Alma wasn't actually being mean to me, she's being protective because she's had to take on the caretaker role of her niece. And Char wasn't being mean either, she's actually shy and she's intimidated by me. It's all these very like understandable human reasons that people weren't getting along, and it's only by like spending time in very cramped quarters with each other that they kind of come around to seeing each other as people. And I think that's so much more fulfilling than either they really are hard asses and I had to win them over by showing them I'm good at this, or everyone loves each other immediately. It just feels so much more real the way that it's done.
And even Jules, like, even though she's the first one that's friendly, like you learn that she kind of needs to be the center of attention, you know, like whenever she's not in a scene, she shows up and goes like, why am I not here? You know,
the moment when Mia, like that morning, has her hair cut and Jules is like, and you didn't tell me?
You had a midnight haircut I wasn't informed?
I wasn't invited?
She's like, you look great, but that's not the point. Like, I need to know this.
There's a scene after Elle and Mia start working together where they're like working late and they come back way after 2:00 in the morning, and Jules shows up and yells at them for not being there for dinner, and Mia is like, why are you awake? And Jules says something like, I had to stay up so I could yell at you. Like, she just needed to be there. It's so good.
Yeah, I feel like there's a version of like we're a team that could have felt very saccharine, but you're right. It all feels so earned because of how awkward it is for like 200 pages. Like it takes, they get there when it ends, basically.
Totally.
I think the other reason that it works really well is specifically because all of the characters are very consistent. Like we've talked about how they do grow and evolve over the course of the story and as you learn things about them, but they are always like the dialogue, the voice of all of the characters is so consistent across everything in a way that is really charming.
Yeah, that's really well done. I mean, you could pretty much tell who is, if you just saw a script without seeing who is talking. Like it's even like the way, like their sentences where it's like Char is going to say as little as possible, Jules is going to say as much as possible. Like they all have their own sort of speech patterns and cadences. It's really like builds like establishes their characters so quickly.
There's a Brian K. Vaughan quote on the cover, but there's another Brian K. Vaughan quote about how when you have a cast of 4, they end up becoming the Ninja Turtles, whether you want them to or not. And I can see it. So like Mia's Leonardo, Jules is Michelangelo, Elliot is Raphael, and Grace is Donatello. Like it fits perfectly by the end.
Funny.
Me approaching my fellow panelists. Which Ninja Turtle are you?
What's your dominant humor?
I'm melancholic.
I'm goofy.
So this opening section we have school and work. The school stuff takes place before everything else, and it feels like a pretty, despite the kind of wacky setting, like a fairly traditional like setup for like a romance story in that way, where it's like there's these 2 outcasts. They come together because they both have detention, and they end up sort of being like remaining outcasts, but finding this solace in each other, eventually joining the Lux team, which is a flying fish based sport, as we all know.
As we all,
I wish we saw more of it. That's my one.
I do.
I do want to know more. I do kind of wish that I said don't explain things earlier, but I do kind of wish that we knew more about Lux because I do kind of want to play it.
Yeah.
We know
it's
Space
about Blitzball. You know.
Yeah, you feel like a popcorn popper full of little, ball pit balls, and then you have to collect all of them on your flying fish.
It's that frickin' elephant game that was popular when we were kids.
The elephant game.
Did you never see that elephant game? It was like a tube and it put up a bunch of butterflies. You had to run around and catch the butterflies.
That sounds familiar.
Yes.
That was a dream I had.
This one never hit me.
That.
This one was not in my lexicon.
Elephant game with butterflies immediately populated when I started Googling. It's called it's called Elefun, the butterfly catching game.
Well, there we
Very
go.
direct.
Amazing.
Yeah, the Lux thing does lead to one of my favorite moments in like the early part of the comic, where Grace and Mia sneak into the room where they keep the fish because Mia wants to practice like flying around at night when no one's there, and just instantly crashes one of the things because she doesn't know what she's doing. She's never flown one. So she crashes in a tunnel and is like having a panic attack basically until Grace like comes into the tunnel to find her. And they're trying to get out. They're both lost. Grace says, "But which way? I don't know where we are." And Mia takes her hand and says, "Then we'll just start walking. We'll make it out eventually." There are so many so many pages in this book where it's just like, here is one image with lots of space to breathe. It's just like, we just want you to focus on this one feeling that these characters are having that I just really, we can talk more about that kind of as a trend in this book, but this is a moment where it really hit me. And one that comes back later, which is another thing this book does a bit more as it goes on, is starts to bring back these moments in very like interesting ways.
Sorry, I did open our chat to see the panel, but I first saw Scout posting a Yu-Gi-Oh card called Elefun.
Sorry.
I don't remember this part of the book.
Sorry.
Definitely
about that.
related. It does look like one of the things they fly when they play Lux, though.
It does. Put a pin in negative space and space to breathe, because I definitely want to come back to that for sure.
Yeah.
I do know that Tillie Walden often does like her own tarot cards, and you can definitely tell.
Ooh.
Yes.
Like, I feel like all this single page panel here feels like a tarot card.
Definitely.
Or like something where there's like
I
kind
did
of
not
3 or
know
4
that.
purposeful imagery.
Yeah.
And that actually
they're really
like
good.
really makes a lot of sense with a lot of the imagery that I saw and the kind of art style, like thinking a lot about like how the characters look when they're running just gives
Yeah.
it looks a lot like tarot cards that I've seen. That
Yeah.
makes so much sense.
I have her tarot deck, and it's amazing. I love it.
Yeah, really good.
We've mentioned now moments in chapter 4 twice. And it's definitely, I think, one of the more memorable chapters for me. So the two things that are happening across the timelines are Jules and Mia having lunch, and then Mia kind of going into the area that they haven't stabilized yet. And also the crash of the fish ship in like the Lux
Yes.
Court. Right. And these moments are overlapping because it's two moments where Mia is doing something that she's not supposed to be doing. And it is like resulting in something dangerous. And it's also two moments where she's being saved by people that she's developing relationships with.
Yeah.
At that time. I don't know that I have much more to say about it, but it's one of the more memorable and also just like visually stunning chapters in a overall visually stunning book.
I love the way she kind of overlaps plot beats like that. That's what makes, I think, the jumps in time work. Even if you find yourself like, there are some moments where I need to take a second to realize like where or when we are. But I think because emotionally, you know where you are in both timelines, it always connects at those pivotal moments. And then I like the sort of flip on that in the sort of finale of the story where we have 4 storylines in the present all kind of intertwining. Like I love that one panel of all 4 of our Ninja Turtles get split up and they're each going down their own path. So that's when I think Jules is talking to the fox spirit, which is one of my favorite parts of the story.
Gorgeous, but what the fuck is happening?
It's wild.
I love that because I think I almost said the game. Whoops. I think the story almost lulls you into this feeling of like, okay, this is just like my world, but it's in space.
Yeah.
And then you're like slammed with a fox spirit and poison air.
Yes.
You're like, oh shit.
And you're like,
this
oh,
is
okay.
Space. Yeah.
I feel like that's really indicative of like the way that the staircase itself feels more alien and like more sci-fi and more science fantasy than like any other part of the thing.
Yeah.
And that feels really
up until
intentional.
that point, they're only going to places where other people have been there before. You know, but by virtue of their job, it has to be a relic of the past or like some kind of broken place that needs to be fixed. And this is like a place very few people have been that everyone is fighting over. So it's inherently different in all ways.
Yeah. And I think it sells because that's a point in the story where Mia's been with the crew for a while and realizes that Grace is in the sort of finds out that there's a way that she can find where Grace is because Grace left school to go home to the staircase. And she realizes there's a connection with the crew there and they might be able to find her. So they go to the staircase to find Grace. And I think that like that really helps sell the danger of it in one way. And also just like what a momentous thing this is that they have been spending all this time in strange but recognizable places. And then you go to the staircase and like even like just like the colors are different. And there are these fox spirits and these giant ancient beings that they call, as they call them. Like it's so alien, which is like both kind of selling like, you know, how much they mean it, like how hard they are trying to like rekindle this connection. But I think it's also really interesting in what it says about the relationship between Mia and Grace, where when Grace shows up at the school, Mia meets her in detention and I think probably feels something like, oh, here's another like troublemaker, even though the reason Grace is in school is in detention is because she didn't realize she was wasn't allowed to wear her light up shoes, and that's why she got in trouble.
Which is such a funny,
which is
like,
so
it's
funny.
so good.
It's so cute.
But then like, you know, you kind of, there's like so many secrets between Mia and Grace that like Grace never tells her the whole truth. And when you finally see where Grace grew up, you kind of realize how different of people they are and what an enormous thing it is that they were able to connect in the first place. And I think it just makes their relationship feel that much more special, where they essentially are like different aliens because they grew up in such different places, you know? It's so much of the book is about making those connections with people who seem at odds at first, or like they wouldn't connect to each other. And I think like the sheer oddity of the staircase really helps to sell that.
Yeah. The moment that sells the difference in these two people the clearest is actually for me, they have a conversation about it. It's in chapter 8. And Mia, who to be totally honest at this point, I'm just like, you're a problem child. And that stresses me out because I'm a little bit of like, and definitely was at her age, like the do-gooder. And she's been causing all this trouble and whatnot. And they're having this fight. And Mia all of a sudden is like the one making the most sense and says, "You don't get it. I like all of you, Grace, even the parts that I don't get yet. I'm not dating the 12% of you that I understand. I'm dating 100% of you, including all your secrets that I don't know. So don't ever think that don't ever say I'd hate you, because that's stupid and not true."
I love that line.
Yeah,
I wrote that line down too.
Right,
I'm glad that
same.
somebody else also, yeah.
And then like immediately we see the staircase after that.
Yeah.
It's like Grace flashing back to home.
It's you see like how much you really don't know about Grace. There's another line that reminds me of that, like much later, where there's after the accident that Mia has in chapter 4 on the restoration job, Shar, who is the captain of the ship, gets suspended for a while because it happened on her watch, and so they end up with this other captain, Jo, who they hate. She's like the substitute teacher, so they have to like haze her. And she does kind of suck. Like she misgenders Elle and is like just being shitty generally to them. And there's a page long dressing down of Jo by Jules, which I think
I loved that scene.
part of it is it was a little much for me, where I was like, you're like, it felt too much like, I don't know, like the taking a stand speech. Like I don't know, it felt a little much to me. But there are like parts of it that I really love, including this one panel where she says, this is Jo kind of like brushing off her misgendering of Elle and saying like, why does it matter that I don't get their pronouns right? And Jules says, have you ever even considered that something that's trivial to you could mean so much more to someone else? You don't get to take the easy road out and just respect the parts of people that you recognize. And I feel like that is so hand in hand with that thing with Grace, where it's like, you don't just love the 12% of a person you understand. You have to love the parts you don't understand at the same time. And it's the same here, where it's like, you can't just say like, well, I like this about you, and I'm just going to be a shithead about the parts that I don't like. It's like, no, you have to treat people as full people, even if you don't understand them. Which is just like a lovely message to see mirrored from both of those angles.
Absolutely. I also I take like pictures of pages, like lines or imagery I especially like, and that scene opens with Jo running towards them, and Jules goes, "Ew." I just love the idea of someone like running out of breath towards a group, and someone just going like, "Oh, fuck this."
Oh man. Beans.
Ew. Scathing. I love it.
Jules is often scathing.
Jules is
I also in that scene,
best.
Mia's just in the background going, "Fuck yeah, Jules."
Get her ass.
I do appreciate as well, speaking of just like the way the characters talk. Like, I feel like, I know Tillie Walden was younger when she wrote this, but I like how real the dialogue feels, you know? Like, I feel like often when writers like write teenage characters, it can feel so forced, or like they're trying to be cool. And like everyone here is just like a normal person. Like, I just really appreciate like how, like, that's how it, like, I think the only real difference with teenagers is that like they feel things on a like stronger level because it's all so new to them, which you feel in this story. Like, you know, there's that shot where when Grace is leaving, like basically there's like a big bang behind me. It's like, no, my first heartbreak. But yeah, it's not trying too hard is my point. I feel like I've read a lot of comics where there's like a younger cast, and it's like, I can't wait to post on Faceplace. It's like, oh God.
Yeah.
I'm 35 and I know this is not how teenagers talk.
Yeah. She doesn't make up like space slang either. That's like always humiliating. Like, just say cool. You don't need like a fun sci-fi synonym for it.
There's some timeless stuff that we've all gone through that you can just evoke that.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
On the
That's
like
so
teenage,
global of you.
It's so global. On the like teenage dialogue thing, there's a part where when Jules is following the fox spirit, there's a very fun line where she says something like, "This better not be some kind of afterlife bullshit" or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
And as she's like walking toward that, thinking she's going to die, what she said, and I also did the same thing as you, Stephen, is took 1,000 photographs of different pages. She says, "I should have done more drugs, kissed more girls, eaten spicier food."
Oh, man.
And I was just like, damn, girl, me too. I totally get it.
She's like, oh, my eulogy is going to blow. It's like, your life,
eulogy's
Jules.
gonna be so
She like ran a couple errands. I really love Jules.
Like with the humor with that, I think it really kind of counterparts well to the fact that later they're like, actually, Jules is the most incredible one of all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, the cognitive dissonance of Jules being like, I'm nothing special, and everyone else being like, no, you're like super important to us.
Yeah, she's the heart of the team.
Yeah.
I think it's really intentional that the whole family unit kind of comes together via the glue of Jules throughout the whole first half. And then we see her be called out as the only one that is able to connect to like this ancient, frightening entity. That's her special talent, you know? She can bring people together.
I also like how the air is toxic because it's not made for her. Like they like the way it's described is that this is not air that's for you. And she's still able to like find a shared language and find, you know, some air to breathe. And in fact, she only really seems to react to that when she's told that it's not. Like before then, she's just sort of nervous. Then being told like this is toxic air, she's like, oh shit. All right, well, one more question. She's great. I also really like, I think there's obviously like a huge Chekhov's gun with Elliot not talking. It's like, okay, when are they going to talk? And like, what's their whole deal? I love when they're like training and they just kick Mia and Jules' ass like with one hand tied behind their back. I do think like their backstory, and maybe this is just because I read the book very quickly this time, I felt like I could have had a bit more time to sit with that, you know, like I feel like that was the only piece of the story that felt like a little bit rushed to me, like the reveal that basically it's revealed at one point. We're bouncing all around the story, right? I'm not throwing anything.
No, don't worry about it.
Okay, cool. Thank you. But basically it's revealed that Elliot is also from the staircase. And the whole deal with the staircase, this like pocket of deep space, is that once you leave, you can't go back. And Elliot was banned because they killed a fox spear, or like one of the like sort of spiritual beings that lived there, because it killed someone important to Elliot. Their story coming back to the staircase is so much higher stakes, to be blunt. Like, because people are trying to kill them. They are like, they have a Rogue One mission while everyone else is
everyone else is like, you know, kind of, they're fighting people, but they're not like, you know, fighting for their lives. Meanwhile, Elliot's over here like getting their entire side tore up.
Yeah, like I like that they have severity, so they're important for different reasons. But I guess I could have used like because of how much like higher stakes it is, I could have used a little bit more time with that backstory to feel it the same way. Because you know, with Mia, you know, Mia's the protagonist, but like I feel like I was on the same exact emotional place as every other character except for Elliot, because they didn't talk for the whole story, and then we get this like sudden backstory. But it still works. I just wish I had. My only note is I wanted more. So
I kind of bouncing off of that, not necessarily about the backstory, but about the fact that Elliot doesn't talk for majority of the comic. I really liked how the first time they do speak,
we don't get to see it.
Yeah, the text is completely cut off.
It's so good.
Very cool.
It's very cool. I was wondering, like, when I was reading it, I was like, ooh, is this going to be, like, something that they continue to do? And then they, like, you know, we actually get to see the words that they say. But I was, like, really struck by that particular panel where, especially if you are reading it online, almost looks like, okay, is one of the images not loading? Like, do I not just, am I not seeing? Router. I know, I was literally like, did one of the pages not load? Do I need to like refresh or something? Because it was just a very cool, I like when borders are played with in comics, and I think that was a really good way of playing with the borders of a panel.
I think I like went back to look at that panel like 7 times throughout the course of reading the back half of the comic. I was really, really struck by it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think with Elliot and going back to that final beat where they're like a crew and they're taking, you know, they're the new crew of the ship, and now Mia is captain. I like that not only does Elliot talk now, but their body language is so much more comfortable. Like, in addition to not talking, they were always kind of like standing like in adults, you know, and like there's always that kid that hangs out with the adults.
Damn, don't call me out.
You're like Scout. You're like Scout with the adults. But yeah, I just thought that was a nice touch. Like, I think for how kind of purposely simple the character design is, I feel like the facial expressions and the body language is so like grounded in realism. It's really, really strong. strong.
I feel like we're getting into art stuff, which we should definitely talk about. Before we do, though, I remembered at the very beginning of this conversation, Stephen, you mentioned the idea of the work that they're doing restoring buildings being sort of thematic with like what the book is about. Is about restoring. And I would love to talk more about that, because I think as I was reading it, at first you're like, this is a really weird job they're doing. Like, what does it mean that they're restoring buildings? It's very strange. And I just remember like when it hit me that like what the story was also about, of just being like, oh, okay, that's like the only thing they could be doing. So I would just love to get more into the weeds on like what that means to you.
Yeah, I mean, comparing it to other like space exploration stories, like what is usually the goal? And it's like with something like Star Trek, it's discovering new things and like new people. And in something like Saga, it's escape. Like they're just running from various people the whole story. And yeah, so rarely is it about going to a known place that has kind of nothing for you in theory. Like I think that's a very interesting flip on the genre. And I remember seeing, I don't know if it was like a quote on the book jacket or an interview, but Tillie Walden has said that she's not like that into sci-fi or something, or at least before writing this. And I think that's cool. I think it's cool when people who are not like super immersed in a genre try it out, because I think it ends up expanding what the genre can mean. And so like I think while there's definitely like a little bit of a sort of a Star Warsy mission at the end, nothing about it feels like Star Wars. And like nothing about this, one of the reasons I love it is it doesn't feel like anything. It feels like a new genre, like a new type of fiction. I think it mostly resembles like a coming of age romance, but I think the choice of space and sort of the inherent loneliness of that, and the fact that like the places we do discover so rarely have other people and they only contain memories. I think that whether that was a conscious decision or not, I think it really just adds to like, this is the kind of story where even if you're not consciously making those connections, you feel it on some level.
Yeah. I mean, it's these places that have fallen into disrepair, much in the way of like, a relationship that you're not keeping up with. There's a conversation pretty early on between Mia and Alma where Mia is saying like the work is harder than she expected. It's different from what she expected. You're like, she expected it to be like construction, and instead you're like rewiring buildings and restoring art and stuff. And Alma says, it can be frustrating. Every now and then we're hired to turn a place full of history into some shitty office space. That always breaks my heart. But it also means we're often the last ones to see a place before it's gone. And Shar keeps records of everywhere we go. So even if it's gone, we won't forget, which pin in that. But then Mia says, I was expecting to just do hard labor, mindless stuff. And Alma says, well, it is just labor when you get down to it. But if you want to find meaning, it's there. I love it when a story tells me, like, if you want to find meaning, you can. It's like, that is such a like statement about like how to read a book, where it's like, if you want to put whatever lens you want to put on it, go ahead, you'll find some meaning, but that doesn't mean like that's what I meant when I wrote it, but it's still, the meaning is still there. But I love this idea. Shar keeps records, so even if it's gone, we won't forget. And I think this is so much a book about like the ways that memory, like that we keep memories alive and that they kind of sustain us. And like you said, it's about like restoration of both physical space and of relationships. And I think it's so... I don't know. It's so sweet and so sad that like the thing that Mia wants to do at the end of this book isn't go and convince her ex-girlfriend to come back with her. It's to say goodbye and have some closure and like end this thing well. And I think that is sort of like the transformation of these buildings into a new thing is what ends up happening with her and Grace, is like, we have to close this chapter so that we can like see what the next one is, which is eventually becomes her joining the ship. But I just think, there are so many of those parallels there that's like, if you want to find them, they're there. And I think they're beautiful.
Yeah. I really liked that it wasn't, I have to go find her and, basically just pick up as if nothing has changed and get my girlfriend back kind of thing. Because that's usually how it feels with a lot of things following that plot point. But I really appreciated that it was like, if she wants to come with me, she can come with me. I just want to like be able to give her the goodbye that I never got to give her, which I think is just a really nice moment, and, you know, getting closure when you don't think you're going to get it, I think is a really unique feeling.
Yeah. And she doesn't want to come back at first. Like at first she's just like, all right, well, bye. And then like has a conversation with her sisters and decides to. And I think that's great.
Yeah, it's been 5 years, which I think is like at this time in your life, like the difference between 14 and 19 is like you have become 5 different people in that process.
Yeah.
You know,
At least.
like now, you know, 5 years for me now is like a couple weeks. Whatever, I'm just sort of more tired. But at that time, it really is like we actually don't know who the other person is anymore, but we can try.
Yeah. It's funny, the angle that you're talking about with the restoration of buildings and restoration of relationships is not something that I even like remotely picked up on until the second read through. And I think that's because the angle that I take on all stories really is always very interpersonal. And so I'm coming into this like really focused on Mia and Grace's relationship as well as like, you know, Alma and Char's ship and like that crew. And so that's the angle, like to me, even when I'm seeing that, I'm still, the thing I'm like most interested in is those people, and like the rest of it is not set dressing, but it's just like it's a world that sets that up, right? So I don't know. This is why I like doing the shows, because you all introduce me to ideas that aren't immediately.
This is also like, from what I remember, it's been a while since I've read A City Inside and Spinning, but I would say that this is most likely Tillie Walden's most character-centric work. Like a lot of her comics tend to be, they kind of feel like they were written by a poet. And I mean that as a compliment, but also like as an observation, where it feels like it's primarily driven by prose and visuals. And this, I think this sort of starts that way and then also becomes more of an ensemble story as it goes on. So I think it's interesting to see, like, I actually like forgot that element of it, like, because I think what I remembered, you know, having read it years ago was the visuals and the love story angle and sort of the mystery of it. And I was like pleasantly surprised to be like, oh yeah, there is this really strong ensemble of characters too. I think partially why maybe they didn't stick with me is that we get them at the very end.
Yeah, it was the same for me. I remembered the image, like the extremely striking art more than anything else. So I'm glad that I like have the story sticking with me a little bit more this time. But maybe now it is time to talk about the art. There is a good transition in the section we were just talking about. It's the first time I believe that they introduce a second color. The art of this book, if you haven't read it and haven't seen it, is largely like a wash of a single color, which is like shading essentially. Everything is sort of more or less monochromatic with different shades of like the same. And so for like the school section, it's this sort of like blue purple, like the early moments in the book. There's a moment where they arrive at the first job early on, when Mia's first job, and at the last panel on the page, you see these little yellow flecks of flower petals across the blue wash of the scene. And then the next page is a full page view of this crumbling, almost like cathedral they're working on, which is covered in these yellow, it's this same kind of like grayish wash on the background, and then these yellow leaves everywhere. And it's like, it's the most color you've seen so far, and it's so striking and so beautiful.
Yeah.
And the yellow isn't really shades either. It is just...
Right, it's just like...
It's one flat color, yeah.
So this is the part of our notes where Scout has just written color. Because as I was doing this, I was like, I need to hear Scout's take on these colors. So I'd love to give you the floor.
So in our shared notes on the Notion, I just wrote color. For comedic effect, I will share with the chat what my long form notes actually look like.
Oh boy!
I wrote a lot more stuff about all of my thoughts about the colors.
Amazing.
This is just another Yu-Gi-Oh card. Oh, I see it. Wait, can I just say, I don't know if this is on purpose or not, but your notes are a to-do list. They have the check-off box.
No, Scout loves to do check-off notes. It's great.
When we're recording Pause and Clause, I put all of my notes in like to-do list mode in the G Doc so I can check them off as we cross all of them.
It's really helpful,
it's actually
honestly.
Genius.
I want to hear you go through this.
All right. Real quick though, Jill, did you have one more thing to say?
No, it was just about another note on, the repairing of relationships. It's not just Mia and Grace, but like there's moments where Char and Alma have like their moment of like, we don't, we are still in love, but like, should we keep doing this? We're happy, but like, are we just in a stagnating happiness rather than like doing something that we want to enjoy? And then
they're having their graduate moment.
Yeah, and then at the end they're like, all right, we're gonna pass this on to you guys, and we're just gonna go live on our little lake house and be gay together, and it's gonna be great.
That's also the reveal of Grass, which is like,
yes.
what is this?
Yes.
Like, it's the first time we see Grass in
and everyone is as excited too. They're like, I think it's probably Jules is like, Grass, like rubbing her hands on it.
I also, this time reading, I kind of felt like, in a way, Alma and is it Char or Char?
I say Char.
It's
Charlotte.
I think because it's Charlotte. Yeah.
Alma and Char, to me, kind of feel like an older Grace and oh my god, I'm drawing a blank.
Mia, Grace and Mia.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, they feel like an older Grace and Mia in some ways. Because specifically the line where they're like, "You miss adventure." I'm like, that would be a Mia thing of like missing the sort of thrill of adventure and like getting in trouble and all that.
And then they do. I mean, Mia becomes like the captain of the ship. There's a scene at the end where it's the first time Char has had to fly the ship because they're like in a tailspin and they have to fix it very quickly. And there's just a scene where like she's so terrified and then it works and you see her just like relax and smile and you can just picture her like fitting into this role and like taking the the space that is open and like it is this real like passing of the torch moment. It's just really lovely.
Yeah.
I also like that Mia becomes the leader not just because she's the protagonist, but like when she gets straight C's. There isn't like an identifiable skill other than she takes risks and she gets to know people very well, which is like the two things you need to be a Star Trek captain.
There we go.
So perfect.
All right, now
List time.
Let's hear it.
Now let's hear it.
All right. The first thing I want to talk about is something that I thought was really, really interesting is use of color throughout the story to denote when time or location is changing, and that being the only thing that signals, sort of like visually time and location changing. There's especially in the back half a lot of moments when we are cutting back and forth across the staircase to like all of our individual characters who have been separated. Panels will be like right next to each other, and you know that they're taking place different locations because the colors are different. And I just kept thinking throughout reading this whole thing, I don't think this comic would be narratively legible if it were grayscale. I think the only reason that the storytelling works is because of the use of color. And if I were in art school, some teacher would be saying, you can't do that. But I love that it is utilized here and it is very intentional and it works so well. And it is such an interesting and clever way to use color.
Absolutely.
It works so well, especially in those later stages where everyone is broken apart, but they're telling everyone's story. There are some pages that's like not even, I mean, I guess there's still, everything's still a panel, but they're just like these like horizontal bars. Each one is a different story and you can tell who and where they are because of the colors they use. And the whole page is just these sort of like disconnected images with different like colors identifying them. And it's just such it's that kind of thing that I mentioned at the beginning, the sort of like art film thing of just letting it wash over you, where you just scan your eyes down the page and get this idea of what's happening to everyone, just sort of hits you wordlessly, and it's just so lovely.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the really like nice things about a medium like a comic is being able to kind of make it a subliminal message of like, hey, we're doing this location or this time by choice of palette.
Yeah. This uses like all of the like it's so visual, which like obviously they're comics or whatever, but I feel like you could read some comics where it's basically just like a script with illustrations, where like this is like you said, Scout, storytelling through color, which is so I don't know, it's that thing. It's always so thrilling to see something where it's like this is using its medium to its full potential and would not work any other way. It's cool to see someone with that much of a mastery over like the form they're working in.
Yeah, the color is so deeply intentional and is one of the things that I'm so like just devouring about, looking over all of the pages and everything and seeing even things like the whole comic starts with these sort of muted purples, and as it goes along, that comes to be the color that is associated with the interior of the fish ship where our main characters live, and sort of associated with that location and sort of the stabilizing place of like, this is the base, and I was so taken by when they get to the staircase, at least in the beginning, when they first get there and they're beginning to explore, that muted purple comes along as only the color tones on the characters as they are exploring these vastly different landscapes. And it is like they don't belong there. They are something that is different. They're something that is alien to the environment, but so familiar to the readers at that point. Just stuff like that is really, really masterful.
Well, it's also like that gets upset too when the environment starts to overtake them in different ways. Like when they are found by some of the staircase like patrol people, or like when Jules ends up going into that cave with the fox, literally she's standing in one panel and then she's in that cave and she's red and she's overtaken by the staircase. I'm not very good at this thing that you're pretty good at, Scout, but that is the one that I was like, oh, too good.
Yes.
I also love in the fox scene, their speech bubbles are just like blood splatter. It's just sort of like this explosion of red. I love when one of my favorite speech bubble like modifications. Do you ever read Bone?
Yes, it's on our list.
I've not read Bone.
One of the like creepy villains in Bone, when they talk, it's this like weird tube that goes out and then becomes a speech bubble. So like it's always kind of connected to their off-screen mouth because their face is like obscured by a hood, and just like words are kind of falling out of them as like fate demands. It's so creepy. But I love when like you can't get too crazy with it because then it will feel like web dings. But like every now and then, like one specific creature like talking, and that aids the feeling of like this is a new language that they're not usually speaking this way. Their speech bubble is just red with no borders and it splatters.
Yeah.
Like I love that so much.
Yeah.
That and the like weird little nematode looking like reds next to the big fox just gave me like huge, and this is just vibes based, that the splattering speech bubbles, the little red bits very much like reminded me of Princess Mononoke.
That is what I was also thinking.
Absolutely.
Which like is also that kind of like, this is something beyond us. Like this is something big and powerful and we do not understand it and we probably never will.
Yeah.
It's like the total flip. Like I remember that scene. I saw the 4K restoration of Mononoke this year in IMAX. It was amazing.
Okay, lucky.
But I love it was pretty cool.
Bragging.
But the conversation Ashitaka has with like the mama wolf, who's like, you're pathetic, and like runs away. I love that this is like, if that went well, this is the conversation.
Yeah.
Like, and Jules also just immediately gives them all pet names, like, oh, it's Buttercup, like, oh, it's like
Marshmallow,
without even thinking twice.
Marshmallow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
As she's breathing like poison air and, talking to a blood spatter wolf.
It's interesting and this is a classic Matt thing where I'm referencing a thing that's probably referencing the same source material because I just don't have the experience. But the wolf spirit specifically reminded me of moments of playing Tunic.
Oh yeah,
of course, because of like the fox and all that, but also just because of like the discomfort and like eeriness of being in an open space with something that's like something you can't understand, something you can't quite comprehend. That feeling happens a lot in that game. But even like, this is like a much goofier moment in Tunic, but when you go into the shop and it's this like,
yes,
like spirit with like, it's like a skeleton of a fox, but it's giant and you can't understand what it's saying. That is specifically the thing that stuck out in my brain and, you know, like sold the mood of that scene for me.
Yeah, because it's like by far the most, other than the fish ships, it's the most like fantastic thing that has happened. So like there's a version of that scene that would feel like, what? Like, where are we now? But it really does work.
Yeah.
It's great. I'm actually curious, what do we all think about the fish? I know we talked a bit about like the sort of the way that we're just sort of thrown in the deep end of like the mythology and we're not given the rules until we need them. But I'm curious, like just with the thematic importance of the restoration of like rebuilding these places and how that connects to, you know, rekindling relationships or at least forging new ones. What sort of thematic purpose do we think the fish fit? Because I don't think it's just because they look cool. I wonder like what that sort of intentionality is.
I think
I don't have an answer.
I don't know.
They may just look cool.
Yeah.
The thing that I kept coming back to with it is a very, I suppose, perhaps selfish thought of, oh, it's really nice to see sort of a sci-fi space story working where somebody is drawing something that's not a spaceship and everybody accepts it as a spaceship, because I am, as an artist, am not as skilled in drawing vessels as I am in drawing animals. So I was like, oh, it's nice that like somebody can make it be fish instead of a ship.
this?
And then I could, and then like you don't have to worry about drawing a ship.
Yeah, that's actually exactly it. So I mentioned Saga before. In Saga, their spaceship is a tree because Fiona Staples said, like, I don't like drawing like mechanical things. It's not fun for me.
Yeah.
And I my read on the fish, I don't know if there's like I think rarely in like good storytelling is it like this means this, but like I think like the ship is supposed to be a warm place eventually, and it's a place that is like adaptable and like, you know, meant to feel like a home and a living thing. And I think it should stand in stark contrast to these old like institutions, like the school, the places they're building. So I think having it be a living thing that has warm colors just on some level makes it work as an organism itself. Like it needs all of them to live as well. Yeah. I also think just like the deep sea and space share like a cool,
I mean, we literally
connection.
call them spaceships.
Yeah.
So like, damn, fish. We got space whales all over the place, you know.
So this is the thing for me about the way that this book treats space generally. A lot of sci-fi, you're in space, but then you're on a planet. You are still grounded in a very literal way. And you never, or at least I never, feel grounded reading on a Sunbeam, even when they're like at the school, right? I don't ever feel like the comfort of like home, right, for these characters, except for when they're on the ship and when they're at Alma and Char's place. Yeah. Those are the two. And you don't see that moment until late in the book.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going back to color briefly, we talked about that's the first time we see grass when they go to Alma and Char's house, but it's also the first time the color green shows up in the comic at all. And it was like you would have thought that fucking like Lady Gaga had come onto the stage surprise, you know, as a surprise guest. I was like, green!
The color green.
Scout's just like in her room, like screaming green. And someone's like, are you okay?
You know, it's so good. It is kind of this design by subtraction of color, like you said, where it's like they're all like, yellows, like the warm colors are used to imply danger and like just like change in general, like whether it's good or bad, which is interesting. And I was flipping through the book and I'm like, in my head, I imagined at the end there was a blue sky for the first time. And it's not the case at all. It's still like there's never not a starry night sky, which is why it always feels like we're in space, even if we're on a planet or in a place. Like it's just all space, baby.
Yeah.
All space.
I love that they're just like landing on buildings that are floating in space.
I do too.
Yeah.
I think it's a gorgeous concept. Again, I'm going to reference a video game. Did anyone play the Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was exactly
where you make
feeling
your
like
own
that.
tarot
Yes.
cards?
Yeah.
Very much.
I don't know if I read this book first or played that game first. I couldn't tell you. But that reading it this time, at least, that's like what I was pulling from in my head to like in just terms of like how they both make you feel. And in that game, like that character is intentionally like isolated. And so that's supposed to be kind of scary for them. But here, I don't know. I think that separation and not feeling grounded is doing a little bit of a different job in this book. But for me, Matt, it gives me the same kind of fear.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
I thought the use of space here is like, we have to kind of be each other's sun, basically. So we have to be the light in each other's universe because places are just places and space is kind of neutral.
Yeah.
So and that also kind of goes back to the fish where it's like, we are, the color of the sun is the color of the ship and of the fish as well.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting that, again, the book just drops you in, but occasionally you learn things about like how this world became the way it is. And there's this like classroom setting where they're talking about how people left Earth and then like went to the moons of Jupiter or something like that.
Yeah.
And it at least sets up context for me that like this is some kind of like post-apocalyptic world in some way, which also explains sort of the realities of these buildings that have degraded in space. I don't know, just because of the nature of humanity and the bullshit that we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like how they also don't like spend too much time explaining why there are no men. Like, it's all women and non-binary.
We haven't even
one
talked
of my
about that.
notes is
that's
real
the
world.
I almost don't even want to because I just like how accepted it is. Like, it's not like a why the last man thing. Like, we can maybe infer, like, oh yeah, maybe like there's a weird all male colony in the distance. We don't waste time with. But I like that it's just like, yeah, this is just how the world works. Like, the fish are ships. There's no men. We're doing it. Yeah.
Girl World. Do we have Girl World thoughts, or did you just want to talk about the fact
Just
that
Girl
was
World.
that it is Girl World?
I think it's a very fun thought experiment to consider what it is like to be non-binary in a world where there seems to be only one gender. Because I think, and just like the preconceptions about gender would be so different, and the societal expectations, gender presentation would all be really different. And so I just liked thinking about Elle as the one non-binary character in a world of girls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the reason, to me, it implies the existence of men in this world, even if those men are not in this story. Because, like, do you invent the word non-binary?
Right. There wouldn't be a binary if there weren't men.
There wouldn't be a spectrum. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I don't have anything to back this up, but this kind of connects to the fish too for me, where I feel like I kind of get the feeling that Tillie Walden went into this being like, what do I like to write and draw?
Yeah.
What do I like
to write and draw? And like, what do I not care about? Yeah, right. What about sci-fi interests me and what doesn't? And I think like, it is sci-fi and gender, there's a lot, like, it's a very rich genre in terms of like exploring gender and identity. But I also think in a lot of traditional sci-fi, we see a lot of like conventional roles for women. So I just like that this book is like, we're not gonna think about, like, it's just an accepted part of this reality. And we're gonna see all this huge variety of characters that are all women and non-binary characters who are usually shoved into the role of like girlfriend, baby, or mom, like it's kind of like usually what writers default to.
Yeah, it just feels like, what if we largely didn't have to think about gender at all, which is cool.
Right.
And also, we talked earlier in previous episodes about my only liking to read about women anyway, so it's just like, this is great. I'm into it. I think it's very wise too to like you mentioned, to not be like, and then in 2260 there was the scourge that all men died. Like, I've been playing a little bit of this game recently called Eclipse, which, like, the setup is that there was divine intervention at some point in the world, and God just was like, no more men, and killed all of the men. Which is like a funny and like a, I guess it's a good way to set up your like Yuri visual novel or whatever. But playing that as a trans woman is also very like, who decided who was a man and not? And like, at what point in there, like what if some of these people who were quote unquote men and were killed were not? I think you get into a lot of really like possibly shitty like gender essentialism stuff if you try to be like, and here's why all the men are gone. I think it's much safer just to be like, everybody's just women here. Deal with it.
Yeah, and we only really get like a relatively small view of the universe.
Yes.
So like, I think we're left with this feeling that like we got to know a few places and a few people really well. And I think that's like, that is to me the way to do sci-fi. 'Cause I feel like I like the feeling that like, you know, one of my favorite things about Mass Effect is wondering like, what's the game that's just like you're a bartender in Omega, or like, you know, what else is life like on this planet we were only on for 20 minutes? You know, I like that we kind of get a little world tour and then we're left with interesting questions.
And I hope they never get answered.
I wonder if, I don't need a wiki.
I wonder if there's on a Sunbeam fan fiction. I hope there is.
Oh, I'm gonna look it up.
Certainly.
We can, if there's not, we can change that.
I guess I'm curious. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Robin, but I was wondering, like the way this book ends. I mean, my gut feeling reading the ending is like that, like they all got to this point, and that's what the story was about. I don't need another story where it's the adventures of them as this new crew. But I also wouldn't.
I would read it
that.
for sure, but I don't need it.
Yeah,
There are 11 fics on AO3.
Let's go.
hell yes.
You simply love to see it.
Am I going to start doing this for every episode? Because I feel like this is not the first time.
I think it's worth doing. People need to know how many.
I do feel like there was a
fics exist for
fanfic
each
corner
comic.
in another episode.
There probably was, because for whatever reason, I just end up doing this. A lot of it seems to be like some like backwritten things of like Alma and Char getting together, like exploring what their life was like before the comic.
Interesting. A prequel.
Some of like a lot of stuff about like exploring like characters who aren't Mia's inner thoughts about like things that are happening.
That's cool. I guess my question was like, yeah, do we want a sequel? Do we want another story in this world?
Most of it does not seem to be.
Yeah. I would like to give you a quick survey of some of my favorite tags attached to these fanfics, such as author wrote this for a school assignment. Literally no male characters. Yay. Pets. Idiots in love.
Yeah, a lot of this is missing scene. No beta, we die like Sid.
I wrote this instead of sleeping.
I wrote this instead of sleeping. Very good.
Good stuff.
Yeah, no
Lesbians
beta,
in
we die
space.
like Sid is very fun.
It's very good.
Idiots in Love. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, some good stuff.
To do another short version of a I'm going to force to become a regular segment. We have a very short fashion corner this week.
Yes.
Which I would just like to
Yes.
point
I have
out.
something for the fashion
Hell
corner.
yes. My contribution is Jules's shirt with a ice skate on it,
It's so good.
which I love so much. And
Do you
also,
know that Tillie Walden was a figure skater?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Spinning
Yeah, very
is all
important
about
part
that.
of her autobio comic. Well, yeah, this is also just all of Grace's sisters who have this sort of like Western kind of like the whole staircase has a sort of Western vibe.
Yeah,
so
very
they've all
space
got like
Western.
scarves and big coats and stuff that I just like love the look of them together.
Mine is there was one frame, one panel where we saw Elle wearing this shirt that said just the word eat.
I love the eat shirt. I want one so bad.
I also love that they're in the background, so it's just like really like jottily drawn.
Yes. We love a distance model.
I got a
Hell yeah.
contribution. I was looking, I couldn't remember anything at the top of my head, but Elliot sure is wearing a black sweater with a pumpkin on it. In
Yes.
page 285, there's like an 8-bit pumpkin on their sweater.
I remember that
Which is
one.
very cool. Yeah.
Oh, it's
I mean,
great.
the fashion kind of has to be fairly minimal in this story. Like someone wearing glasses is like a huge deal. Because everyone is like, if you're not just wearing like a t-shirt or maybe a second layer, like you're really standing out. But yeah, I love it. It goes back to the intentional use of color. Like they get like one accessory
Yeah,
to kinda
totally.
sell their character.
Yeah, for
Well, that's
real.
why Mia getting a haircut is so important.
It's
right?
great.
To her character.
Love
Like,
an
it very
emotional
much
haircut.
like changes the vibe.
Yeah.
I'm going to use this as an excuse to talk about a piece of the art that I forgot I wanted to talk about. about?
Please.
Which is at the end of chapter 6, when Mia this is like after she's like almost died by going to the wrong area of the place that they were at, and she's basically been reassigned to work with Elliot on like the internals and like the electronics in these places, and she like sees them in like the crawl space, and it's, I don't know, it's notable that they are wearing like a jacket, like a worker's jacket and goggles.
Yeah.
But also I love this entire page.
That page
I just
is
think it's
so
gorgeous. It looks beautiful. And also the way that Tillie is drawing like these electronics.
Yeah.
There's so much detail. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, it looks like fireflies initially.
That or like crystals almost. It gives like a bismuth kind of vibe of like just the fractaling sort of boxiness.
Yeah. Yeah, the level of detail on some of these is just wild. I remember like reading through this time on like the very first page. I was like, okay, this is establishing that like you're in a world where things don't necessarily match up and you just have to get used to it, and and also that Tillie Walden is going to be doing the most work possible on every illustration in this book, because you just see Mia in this ship that is like just greebled all to hell. There's like,
it's so greebled.
there's just so much stuff on everything. It's wild.
What I love about that is how there are these pockets of really dense, hyper detail, very small, finicky stuff. And then also Tillie knows when to hold off on that and when to have almost nothing there. The thing that I wanted to put a pin in earlier is on top of the color, the other thing that Tillie Walden has a really, really strong sensibility for is there's concepts like if you are, you know, in like composition 101 in art school, like the things we talked about are different hierarchies that you can find in a piece and use to your advantage. Hierarchy of color is one of them. Another big one is hierarchy of size, and I think hierarchy of size is really, really present here when we are seeing characters that are very small in a given panel or page, like on these big vast pages with these little characters, but the characters are still so distinctly the focus, the place that your eye is drawn. And a lot of that has to do with, you know, size and space and the use of that. I have one of my favorites here I'll send is when Mia and Elle and Jules are jumping off of one of the buildings that they're restoring when they're like doing this sort of bringing two buildings together via a complicated wires and like counterweight system, and they jump off together.
Yeah, this is so
I'm
good.
just
This
staring
is
at
also
this.
great
I'm
use
sorry.
of negative space. Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. And again, this feels like 3 of girls or something. Like it feels like a tarot card.
3 of girls.
3 of girls.
Oh man, I got 3 of girls reversed. Shoot.
I'm just noticing this also has huge shape hierarchy, because everything aside from our 3 characters jumping essentially is a straight line. And then the characters are curved. So that draws your attention to the thing that is different. Just really, really exceptional stuff.
I love getting Scout's art class.
Scout, I love you.
I tried to send my favorite page and it sent you a really scary.
Did you just send us a virus, Stephen? What's going on?
Yeah,
It's a virus.
It's a virus.
The page that is the split up of the different characters as they walk through.
It's so good.
It's so good.
Yeah, that's I mentioned it before, but yeah, it's the 3 characters when they get split up and they're all walking their own path. I mean, literally, it looks like now that I'm looking at it again, I'm like post it in the non-malware format. Let's go some that.
Oh man.
Here we go. Oh man.
I wanted the malware.
Yeah, like, actually, now that I look at it, like this might be a stretch, but I feel like Mia has a little bit of full energy going on. She's like literally stepping off a cliff.
Yeah.
Jules has the strength imagery of like the girl and the
creature,
beast, although she's following it. Yeah, and then Elliot is following like a bunch of like orbs that look like eyes and walking through a very narrow corridor. So I'm not sure. It's not evoking a direct card for me, but there is just such a sense like all their journeys are so different. But all we're getting, again, going back to your point, Scott, of like how much work color is doing. If you remove color from this image, it kind of loses all meaning. Other than like, oh, there's like I can tell that maybe Mia's in a colder environment and there's a fox in one. But like otherwise, like, we're really getting like a sense of warmth and unknown with Jules, a sense of adventure with Mia and a sense of danger and uncertainty with Elliot, which is really cool.
Good art.
Good art.
Well, and the thing about the tarot too is like the tarot is a journey. It is a cycle. And so I
it's
think,
a story.
Saying like they're all on their own different journeys here, but thinking of it in the sense of the tarot is like they're all on different parts of the same journey, which kind of reinforces.
Yeah, they're all kind of fools.
Which it also like
sometimes
reinforces their, status as like this tight-knit found family.
Yeah, because the fool also sometimes has, not that it's this literal, but sometimes has like a dog companion. So there is a sense like, okay, they're all the main character now simultaneously.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
I think even, I don't know if this is just me reading too much into it, but the like those red sort of stone-like things that are in sort of framing the Elliot one look so much like the weird ember fire that Shar and Alma are at when they are in sort of like being detained. And they're like sitting in front of that fireplace that has stones that look just like that. And when I saw this page, I was like, oh, even they are kind of, they're not on screen here, but they're sort of represented by that like visual through line.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of like imagery that repeats itself.
Another visual motif I'm wondering if anyone has any thoughts on is this repeated image of doorways. Like there are a lot of drawings in this of, I didn't get as many of them as I thought I did. A doorway that is just like all white. And there are a lot of moments here where you see the back of a character walking into the doorway, usually into something incredibly dangerous. They like, I kept...
Even the Elliot image is kind of like that with the light of the electronics.
Yes. And lots of things that just draw your eye. And I kept noticing it. And then this is the very last page of the comic, is Mia walking through a door in the sort of control room of the ship toward the rest of the crew. And you just see white space that she's walking into. That really kind of made it land for me that like this is something. And I don't know if I can like put together what it is, but it's very often used, I think, to show like a character walking into, it's a very just sort of like determined feeling of like there is something dangerous ahead and I'm walking unflinchingly toward it, which I think takes on a different meaning in this sort of last one where it's this like, boldly going kind of journey. But yeah, I didn't know if anybody else clocked that or had thoughts about it.
Like stepping directly into a light feels like a very final thing too, where it's like, this is the end of this story. Like there will not be more kind of visualization.
Scout, you just shared the image of Mia stepping over the barrier before that part of the building they're working on collapses. I think that there's maybe something there about... and I'm putting this together live while I'm talking, but I think that there's maybe something there about like Mia being willing to take certain risks and not others. Like early on, you're introduced to Mia as a person who will take all kinds of risks, sometimes at her own expense, right? Just to like have a good time. And I think like in some ways in like interpersonal relationships, she at least approaches those differently. I guess when it doesn't come to grace, at least approaches those differently. So maybe there's something there, but I'm not 100% sure. Like, I don't even know that that's an idea that makes sense with these characters.
Yeah. I mean, something like this, I wonder how much of this is like not even a conscious decision.
Yeah.
Not that there is an intentionality, but like, I mean, on one hand, it's like the style Tillie Walden is drawing in, this sort of like intentionality of like using fewer colors, using like lots of negative space and shape. Everyone's clothes are very, minimal. We're getting like anything that is identifiable is huge in importance. Yeah. So I think having a silhouette of a door frame a character is in some ways like convenient utility. But on the other hand, so much of the story is about old places and connection. And there's a little bit of a Kingdom Hearts vibe going on with these doors as I scroll down. And what I really like about the final door is that most of the doors are like signifying either like a new beginning, an ominous, chapter looming ahead, an unknown place, an unknown journey. But then the final door is like so warm and so light, and there's a ray of light coming from off panel. Like it's like this diagonal, like thick ray of light coming from the side that illuminates the floor and the doorway. So the door is not this isolated kind of dark alleyway, but it's like this sort of like, it almost bleeds into the page. And the fact that there's this heavy line that connects it basically from the page before, to me on some level communicates like this all led to here. And this is like where Mia should be.
I love that.
And like the next, because the next panel is the stars in the sky too, which I think also kind of, it's not like doors lead to stars, because that's how we get around. It's just sort of like we are the light in this galaxy. And like we create light when we connect with others and where we go to new places in our own lives. At least that's the feeling I get looking at these two panels alongside each other.
I think that really tracks, especially because a page or two before that is the image of you see Mia. Where did I put this in my many folders of photos I took of pages? You see Mia, I think, looking out the window of a ship, and superimposed on that is the first image of her from the first page going to school. And it's like another moment where I just burst out crying, where it's like the beginning of her journey meeting up with the end. And it's that idea that like, is always so heartrending of like, would that earlier version of yourself like be happy with where you ended up? And I think it's like a very clear yes in her case. But I think that really feeds into what you said about this is where she's supposed to be, and this is where everything has led her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like, there's another one here that I really like. It's Jules following the fox spirit, and the whole, this feels real Mobius. And I mean that as a compliment, where it's like the walls have this like texture to them, where it's like on one hand, it looks like almost overgrown with some like unknown red plant, but then there are like clearly like decorative carvings in these pillars, so it feels like this is like an unknowably old and important place, and it's all red, just like flat red. So is Jules, the dog is white, and they're going into a gray door. So it's like such like, even though she's using this imagery of these like sort of ominous doorways over and over again, they all carry such different meaning and vibes, for lack of a better word.
I feel like not saying vibes is the number one thing that I try to avoid at all points in time. I'm like,
I'm sorry.
No, you're not your problem. I feel like it's just like me regularly talking about art. I'm like, how do I not say the vibe?
All I know is vibes.
Sometimes it's the vibe. I give you permission as an artist.
Sometimes it's about the vibes.
When you're walking into a gray staticky door in a Mobius-ass temple and a little fox leading you away, all you have are vibes.
Sometimes you have to just
I'm
the vibes
trusting my vibes.
Sometimes all you have is vibes.
Yeah.
We have in our notes here also favorite characters for everyone. I would love to hear. And maybe wrap those up with just other favorite moments, favorite lines we didn't discuss at the time. I think I wrote next to that in the note, Paul the Space Cat, who I love. The greeble little cat who's there the whole time. But I think we didn't talk too much about Grace's sisters. And I just really love them showing up at the school to take Grace away. There's a moment where, they've come to take Grace, and obviously like Grace and Mia are both kind of broken up about that. And Mia immediately like jumps onto one of the sisters and starts like trying to beat her up. And they're, so they get in this big like physical fight until Grace yells at them to stop. And Mia hops off and goes to like give Grace a hug and like, hey, are you okay? And the sisters realize that they're dating at that moment. And immediately the vibe shifts and they're like, oh my God, you must be Mia. It's so good to meet you. Thank you for taking care of her sister.
It's like, oh my God, you have a girlfriend.
Yeah. And it's just such a nice moment of like going right from them like beating the shit out of each other to being like, well, we all love Grace, so I guess we have to be cool now. It's such a nice little moment. And I just love their characterization generally. I think it's a thing this book does a lot, like we talked about earlier, where you're introduced to the crew and they seem very standoffish and mean. I think that's something that does repeat here, where it's like these characters that could very easily be set up as like enemies as soon as they understand each other's motivations, are kind of like, oh, okay, I see why you did that thing, which I think is just a really good thing it's good when you can pull that off well.
Yeah, this is a story that benefits from no like true villains. There are characters that are antagonistic, and like there are, you know, forces against our heroes, but like it's all kind of based on like where they're at, you know, like I think the most antagonistic force is like the residents of the staircase, and that's largely due to like actual history between that, you know, we're dealing with baggage on a societal level for the first time and not just like based on the last 5 years of boarding school. But yeah, I mean, my favorite's Jules, like by far. I love Jules. I feel like I see myself in her. I feel like she's the kid that's too loud in class, and like that was me, and still is. And like is not subtle and can't hide how she's feeling, for better or for worse. I find her really endearing, and it's cool to see like she kind of steals the show early on, and I like how by the end, like every personality is like as loud and strong as she is.
Yeah. I think I probably identify the most with Grace. Like I think I am the most like Grace, just like in my day-to-day life and like growing up and all of that. Like when I was Grace's age, I was probably very Grace-like. Like I would be the one wearing the shoes and being like, wait, the shoes are a problem? I think that literally happened to me, where I made my own Girl Scout sash out of a fabric that was different from the fabric of the rest of my Girl Scout troop's Girl Scout sash, and like the leader of the troop got mad at me about it.
That's so funny.
Oh my god.
Some more deep Scout lore. I love to drop Scout lore occasionally on my podcasts. But my favorite character is actually Elliot, and I don't know why I feel such a deep affinity for them. There's just something about the character who doesn't speak but is observing and like taking in everything so constantly, and is so present despite not being directly like involved in any of the conversations, that really like drew me to them through the whole thing. And then I was like there's something very scandalizing about seeing them smoke a cigarette later. So I liked that too.
Yeah, you get the sense that Elliot feels things the most intensely. That's the vibe I got, at least. Like they kind of referenced there was some job that traumatized them, and I don't know if we ever know what that was, if that was them leaving home or not. Another thing we didn't bring up that I think is like kind of loosely connected to the doorway stuff, and I'll stop soon because I want to hear everyone's favorite characters. But there's the reveal that Alma and Shar brought Grace to Mia's school. Which I love that. I love that there's a light touch of like we were all kind of meant to be together on some level.
Yeah.
Like even this crew that you kind of joined because you didn't get into college and like there wasn't really any clear path for you. It's like maybe try out this weird work where you restore things. That was actually the like found family you needed, and also the people that brought the love of your life to you. That's like very
it's so
gorgeous.
It's just lightly touched. Like they don't go too into it, but I love that it's there.
Yeah.
It's sort of this like little element of like there's maybe a force beyond us we don't recognize that kind of pulls us together.
There's that moment right before they leave to go to the staircase.
We were there.
Where Alma tells that to Mia and says, "We found her once, we can find her again." And I was just like, oh God. My heart.
That line killed me.
Yeah.
The other side of that coin is that we find out that I think it's Miss Martinez, the teacher that was sort of on Mia's side all through her high school years, was Alma's older sister. And like that's how she gets the job, but that's also sort of the other side of that fate bringing us together kind of thing. You know, the universe is smaller than it seems.
Absolutely.
I don't want to completely just copy what you said, Scout, but I also really love Elliot a lot. I find them the most I find them the most interesting person to read about in this book. It's why it's one of the reasons I really love that page that I talked about earlier. I really love their backstory with Sid. And maybe that's part of it too, is just like they have a really interesting question throughout the whole book that you're following, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I think maybe converse to what I normally enjoy, I think Jules is really fun to read. That like kind of loud, brash character is not a character that I'm like usually interested in these books, but something about Jules specifically really draws me in.
Yeah. I was looking at, I saved one of these pages of Ms. Martinez talking when she you get the flashback of her telling Mia about the crew, and she's talking about the first time that she ever saw Mia when she came to school as like a 10-year-old or whatever. And she's talking about this time when Mia like wanders off and the teacher had to find her and like bring her back to her parents who were very worried about her. And she says, I just remember thinking that if I hadn't found you, you would have just kept on walking. I saw so much strength in you, so much courage, and I still do. And I want to help you see that in yourself. And then Mia says, you know, what was your sister's name again? And that's how she got linked up. And it's just like, it's part of that same thing where it's like these weird little moments of like this little girl wandering away from her parents eventually leads her to bonding with this teacher, which leads her to getting this job, which leads her, you know, all of these kind of like pathways that come together. Man, fucking good book, you guys.
Good stuff, y'all. Good
beautiful.
book.
As if we're just rounding up little moments, I don't know if anyone else clocked this, but there's a panel here. I'll have to find what page it was on, where it's in Grace's room, and you just see on the wall behind her, there's a little drawing of like a little bean with stick figure arms that says Grace by Mia. It's like,
oh my goodness,
a little drawing of Grace.
It has
that
her
Mia
little
did.
bun. It has
That's
her
so
little bun when she
cute.
has her hair up.
It's so good.
Wow.
I saw that and I was like, this is my favorite drawing I've ever seen in my life.
I love that.
I like that Grace is a writer, a guy that's like kind of present in her story. And in a weird way, her needing a second to decide whether to leave or to go was her having to write the rest of the story. Like, I have to figure out how it ends, you know? It's
There's
so
another
good.
great moment with her sisters. When they break in, you realize that when the window opened, it like scattered the pages of her story and they're like
papers.
standing on them. And Mia's like, no, you're stepping on her story. She'll be so mad. And they're like, we know. And everyone gets really animated about putting them
Everybody's
together.
like, "Ah!"
That like reveals so much of everybody's character in one line. It's so good.
Oh, yeah. They're also shocked that Mia was able to read it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you
yeah.
read
She
it?
let
Like,
you
we
read
don't
it?
even
Yeah.
get-
She let you read
that's-
that?
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, that's a great scene.
Well, there's one more line in our notes here, which simply says, this I'm assuming is Scouts. Do you want to read your last note here, Scout?
Yeah, I can read it. Life moves on around the holes in your heart where unsaid goodbyes sleep, but sometimes you still have to wake them back up.
What the fuck, Scout?
That is...
Damn, that's poetic.
Did you write? Is that from the book? Or did you write
I wrote that.
Scott?
That was my
good.
note on the...
That's beautiful.
Damn, that's good. What the hell?
You should email Tillie Walden and be like, you know that all that negative space in the last panel?
Can you just put this in there?
Wow,
That's
thank you,
so
guys.
wonderful. You can write, you can draw, you can talk into a mic, you can do it all.
I'm a triple threat.
I'm on a Sunbeam, baby.
No, never apologize.
Thank you.
I don't know.
That's why I identify with Jules. I'm just yelling.
Yes. No, when you were like, that was me
Sharing
as a kid, I was like,
thoughtful
oh, no, really? Yeah, I never would have guessed.
Yeah.
Got his ass.
I had
Damn.
a t-shirt in middle school and high school that just had like a dinosaur on it. Like it was just like a green shirt with a dinosaur, which is I feel like the like Steven version of the ice skate shirt.
Of the ice skate, yeah.
That does
I was
feel like
gonna
your
say
energy.
that's like anybody drawing a biographical comic about you. That's just the
That's what
outfit
your
that you
outfit.
wear when you're a
It's
kid.
like, he has 8 green plesiosaur shirts. Yeah.
Cool. I don't know if anyone else has any other wrapping up thoughts. I think we covered a lot.
I will say, I know for some of you, this was your first Tillie Walden. I'm curious if you want to read her other work now. And if so, I think A City Inside is actually a great follow-up to this book. 'Cause it's kind of like, it's visually kind of similar in that like, it's very sort of like,
It's a
this,
little
like, magical
dreamier. Yeah, a
realist
lot of her
take
stuff is
on a
more
love story.
grounded.
But it's really short though. So it's like a very nice, if you just need kind of like a burst of On a Sunbeam, and A City Inside is great. And Spinning is also a really wonderful work as well. It's more autobiographical. So I feel like the sort of school years part of this is like predominantly what Spinning feels like.
Yeah. This was my first Tillie Walden, and it's still the only Tillie Walden I've read. But I bought Clementine several months ago.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Volume 1. I know Volume 3 like just came out. And I bought it without knowing that it was a Walking Dead thing. And when I saw that, I was like, maybe I open that when I'm feeling more in the mood for that.
That's kind of why I've waited a bit, but I'm really curious like what her take on a Walking Dead story is.
Yeah,
you know?
I listened to another like comics podcast called Off Panel, and he does like interviews with creators and stuff. And he interviewed Tillie about all of her career, but specifically she was on there to talk about Volume 3 of Clementine. And that conversation convinced me that I should read it and see what it's like. I think I guess it's based on a character from the video game, which
Clementine is I played most of the Walking Dead games, which honestly I read like the bulk of the comics, and at a certain point I kind of fizzled out because I just found it to be like I think it was a great and important series for a while, but it kind of turned into torture porn after a while for me, where it just sort of was like, who's gonna die next? I feel like you kind of made your point like 20 issues ago. But the game I thought was really interesting. I thought the game, it kind of proved that like it was a whole new group. It wasn't like the same group of characters in the comics and the show, although there were some cameos from like Glenn and a few others. But like it was a choice. It was like right at the beginning of like choice-driven narratives being like the sort of buzzword of AAA games. So it was like not too long after the first Mass Effect.
Yeah.
And Clementine in the first season of the game is a little kid who's sort of like the moral compass of the story. And then in the later seasons, you play as her as she gets older and becomes the protagonist. And I would recommend, if you haven't played the first season of Walking Dead, I feel like it's so of its time, but like I really liked that first season. And I wonder if the comics require you like having known her from the games, or if you can just dive into the comic. I probably would assume the latter, given that it's been quite a while.
And you know me and doing homework, I'm not a fan. So
I imagine Clementine is Image Comics, right? Because I was a little bit worried because like Walking Dead was sort of like the moneymaker for Image for a long time, and once that ended,
what do we do?
Oh, shit. Well, Saga's on hiatus. What's paying the bills?
Yeah,
Clementine, help!
It's definitely Image.
So
Save us, Clementine.
Yeah. Save us, Clementine. Save us, Tillie. Yeah, I definitely will read that. I feel like it's been long enough that I could read a Walking Dead story and
I feel the same way about Walking Dead as you. I read some of it and eventually was just like, I can't anymore. It was like with Game of Thrones, where it's just like, I get it. The world sucks. But I think like Tillie Walden's take on that character specifically is something I would be very interested in, of like this young girl trying to make it through this like,
100%.
Very difficult situation. I described the zombie outbreak as a very difficult situation. But I think she could do it some justice.
A very difficult situation right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've covered some of the further reading that we have here for Tillie Walden. Spinning in a City Inside, I also highly recommend. Her first book is called The End of Summer, from 10 years old this year, which is wild, which I've also heard kind of raves about. And post on a Sunbeam, there's a couple of things that I haven't read. Are You Listening? Alone in Space, the Clementine stuff. But if this sounds interesting to you and you've read On a Sunbeam, I have to imagine that she didn't suddenly stop being extremely good at making comics. So it might be worth picking up.
Yeah, I would love to look at some more of her stuff.
Alone in Space is actually a compilation of a lot of her early work. So it has like A City Inside and a few other stories in it.
Nice.
If you just want to have them all in one place. Cool. I have a physical copy of that as well. I saw the physical restoration of Princess Mononoke in IMAX. It's pretty cool. Have I mentioned that yet?
Did I mention how cool I am? Oh, no, I didn't? Okay.
Did I show you my cool dinosaur t-shirt yet? They used to live on Earth.
Whoa, really?
They lived here?
I'm more of an iguanodon guy, but they don't make t-shirts.
Yeah.
More of the
They're not as
underground
popular.
dinos you're into. You probably haven't heard of them.
More underground.
One day, Iguanodon's going to get really popular. You're going to be able to say you knew them when.
Yeah.
Do you think anyone else on Earth has equated iguanodons to indie rock? Like we just
really cool paleontologist.
Probably, honestly.
Did you feel the unique thrill of the first time something's ever happened? I see a glowing doorway in front of me. New merch, Iguanodon shoegaze.
I would wear a shirt that just says Iguanodon shoegaze with no other information on it for sure.
Yeah, with no explanation.
What is that? It's cool. That's all you need to know.
Oh man, I'm looking at Alone in Space. I really want to pick it up, actually.
Oh, yeah.
It's awesome. I mean, yeah, I think it's 3 of her earlier works in one place, including A City Inside, which is
it's
my
great.
personal favorite.
Before we wrap, does anybody have any other further reading to recommend, or do we want to just leave it with read more Tillie Walden because she's good as hell at this?
Selfishly, I will say I'm just so happy you all started this show because, like, pre-pandemic, I was reading, like, as I mentioned before, I would go and get 3 things every time I went to the comic book store. So, like, I had this, like, scary backlog. And at a certain point, I was like, I actually am not going to buy any new comics until I've read everything, which I've almost finally done. The only thing I haven't read on my shelf is a Junji Ito book, which I'm waiting for Halloween to read.
That is genuinely incredible self-restraint. Because I went to, like, 3 comic book stores on my trip when I was like, I'm moving and I need to, like, also read everything that I already have. And I was like, maybe I'll pick this up.
Yeah, but when I heard you all talk about Nightwing, I was like, I gotta get new shit again, and I'm gonna trust my friends with the Rex. So I'm just gonna read everything. You have great power, wield it responsibly. So I'm gonna read everything you recommend, and probably end up reading the fix too. So be careful. But yeah, the show's great. I had a great time talking with you all. I know it's a good recording when I forget we're recording, which is partially why the last 20 minutes have gone the way they have. But I love you all, and this is so much fun.
Thank you, Steven.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you so much.
I just want to jump in and say, if you're going to read with us, then the next thing that you're going to read, at least after this episode, is going to be The Department of Truth. So we are getting into our spooky season, and we actually picked our next 3 books
moments
right
before we started recording.
But we're gonna,
Oh, this looks cool. The Department of also Image Comics.
Comics.
There was a period where I basically just like I would get anything, and like I read all of Descender, I read all of East of West. Like I really was like an Image fanboy. I still am, but like I sort of just saw Image and bought it like instinctually for many years.
Yeah, this is a really cool book. It is like vaguely Americana conspiracy horror stuff. And we're going to be reading Volume 1, The End of the World. It's a book by James Tynion IV and Martin Simmons. It's really cool. We read it for the Comic Club in the TWG Discord a while back, and I've kept reading the series. So that's going to be our first like spooky season book of the year. We got a couple more coming after that.
Hell yeah.
And speaking a couple of moments ago, depending on where we edit that, of The Worst Garbage, In Sequence is a proud member of the Worst Garbage Podcast Network. Please go to theworstgarbage.online to find the other wonderful shows that we share space with, and join our Discord where there's a comics club, as Matt mentioned, and, you know, lots of other fun stuff going on. So as for me, I've been Robin. I finally made a place where you can find all of my stuff, so I only have to plug one thing at a time. RobinBEA.card.co is where you can find all of my writing and podcasts and streams and such. Panelists, where can everybody find you?
Steven, you want to go first?
Sure. You can find me on Blue Sky, just at Steven Hilger, whatever the URL for Blue Sky is after that, and Steven Hilger art elsewhere. I'm also in the process of updating my website, so one day I'll have one place, but I think Blue Sky is probably the safest bet. I'm also like in the Discord we share, so if you want to talk about Fire Emblem or on a Sunbeam, just at me.
Honestly, just say Fire Emblem and
just say Fire Emblem, you'll appear.
The speed stat is kind of a tricky one to understand. You'll attack twice if the opponent's equipment weighs less than you.
God.
Steven's not hard to find on the Discord.
Damn.
Wow, that was like the politest burn I've ever heard.
I am way easier to find than you on the Discord because I am always there. So
yeah, I'm very present in like 3 channels basically.
You can find my stuff at matthorton.live. I am going to say this on the show now as a forcing mechanism for me to get stuff done. For a variety of reasons that you will be able to see in a video on my existing YouTube channel. I am starting over on YouTube from zero. I'm creating a brand new YouTube channel. By the time you're hearing this, that'll be the one that is linked on matthorton.live. So I'm not going to bother you with another link. But if you're a person that enjoys the videos that I make, I would appreciate like you going over there and subscribing. It is scary as shit to do this, but it's the thing that I'm doing because I think it's the right call. So
you're stepping through
you're stepping through the doorway.
Yeah, you're stepping through the doorway, Matt.
Yeah. Take a step.
Jill?
You can find me at on plottwists.card.co, where you can find literally everything that I do.
Hell yeah.
I would also like to plug continuing to pressure payment processors to stop their unnecessary censorship laws that they're trying to push on us.
It's a good plug.
Absolutely.
You can find me on Blue Sky at HumbleGoat, and you can find my art Tumblr at HumbleGoat Art. And you can see the art that I do, including this podcast cover art, at scoutwilkinson.myportfolio.com. And
I love the art for this show, by
thank
the way.
you.
I love the depiction of all of you. Yeah, it's great.
And listen to Jill and I do literary analysis on Warrior Cats.
We also talk about fan fiction there.
We do talk about fan fiction there.
Yes.
Great.
Who would have thought?
Well, thanks again so much for joining us, Stephen, as our very first guest.
Thank you,
yeah.
Steven.
Yeah, thank you,
I'm the
Steven.
first guest.
Yeah, you're our first guest.
Wow. That lit my heart on the Sunbeam.
That's always the best in the biz. And thank you, regular
Wrapping it up,
panelists,
baby.
for being here as always. And thank you, listeners, for listening. Please remember to support your local library and or comic shop for this comic and all of the ones we talk about in the future that are available there. I guess not webcomics. Just go to your library and get something else instead for those episodes.
Go to your library.
Yeah.
Go to your library.
Just
use the
check shit
computer
out.
there.
Check out
Library.
anything.
Check out
Comics.
anything. Even if you don't read it, just check it out.
Do the thing that Steven does at the comic shop. You can do it at your comic shop or at your local library, where you just pick something that you have no idea what it is, and you get to try it. And if you do it at the library,
I should do that at the
if you do it at the
library.
library,
I'll save.
there's no cost to you, no risk, no cost, just a great time.
I'll save so much money at the library.
Steven, what libraries are you going to? Are they taking your money at the library?
Are they stealing your money?
I think you got scammed.
Yeah. Is the library just a random person with
Is the
a
library-
cart of books that like walks down the street?
The library to me is a text I got, and someone said, "Click here." And I was like, "Free books?
Oh, Steven!
I can be my own boss and read a book."
TWG, the worst garbage, the online